fulfillment and logistics services in the US, now in India. I'll start with a brief introduction. I'm Amit Malhotra. I'm the VP Technology here at XPDEL. I'm primarily responsible for overseeing the integration. At the front end, we have various marketplaces such as Shopify, Walmart, and the Amazon of the world. The back end, we offer seamless integration with the industry ERP systems, the accounting softwares and such. I would now like to pass on and
maybe quick introductions.
I'll start with a quick introduction across the board with the rest of the team on the stage here. I'll start with John Johnson.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Johnson. I'm from the United States, and I helped launch XPDEL in the United States, and I'm thrilled to be here to help launch XPDEL in India. We have a great story to tell, and we're thankful that you're all here.
Hey, I'm Ashish Shada, and I'm the CEO of XPDEL India, and also the global CIO of XPDEL. Hi everyone, Manish Kapoor. I'm founder and CEO of two sister companies we're going to talk about, Advanix and XPDEL. So I want to give a quick background. Amit lives in Dallas. He's been instrumental on the technology side to launch these companies in the US. John's based in San Francisco. I'm in Los Angeles. We're actually headquarters just about an hour north of LA. And quick background, we're a relatively new player, 4 years into this, but we're not new by any means in this space. And I think the two big highlights I want to share is Amazon and FedEx. I was employee number one when Amazon Logistics was formed, and helped Amazon roll out home delivery worldwide. That was great because I got an opportunity to actually come to India and help launch home delivery in India as well. Most people don't know that Amazon planned out logistics even before the fulfillment centers were launched. And fulfillment centers or FCs, you might know, is where once you place the order, they're picked back, and then transportation kicks in to bring the package to your home. In the US, the team that launched home delivery for Amazon, a good portion of their team is with us. And that's what really makes it exciting. Most of us, after 20 plus years of corporate experience, decided to do this together. It feels like putting a band together and playing good music again. Prior to Amazon, I was with FedEx for 7 years and ran US operations for FedEx Office, which is a retail arm of FedEx. Everything but retail, and part of that launched same-day delivery services for FedEx. The reason I'm sharing this background is it really comes down to the experience that we could do. And so it was FedEx, Amazon, a couple of other corporate roles before I decided to take the plunge and start Advanix first and then XPDEL. And we're going to talk about the differences there. But the bottom line is we're on a mission to help merchants really win the e-commerce game. Unlike some of the large players, the other e-commerce players really focus on the consumers. That's a given. But we want to work as hard for the merchants, especially the small businesses and the retailers that they don't have a clear path forward. So what we want to cover today is set of areas. One is I want to share with you quick insights on e-commerce and supply chain in general, globally, and then talk about what's happening in the US. The reason is that we expect, typically in India, 3 to 4 years later, you'll see the same trends coming in. Although we're trying to speed that up. We want to get ahead of that. We will introduce Advanix and XPDEL. What do we do and what's the mission. And then focus really on India, the Indian market, and what are our plans to really launch go from here. So let's talk about the overall supply chain. So there's a lot on this slide, but I want to quickly summarize. Again, think about the US in this case, where we imagine the suppliers, companies that are producing the products. In the past, the products were somehow brought to the retail stores. And then the consumers would go to the retail stores and buy the products. So that's what's called a push supply chain, where the products are being pushed down to the stores near where the customers are. And then there was a need to reduce cost. That's where the hub and spoke model was introduced. And the reason for that is, if you look at the second row, putting those DCs in, similar concept now in the sort centers that you might have seen with e-commerce. The idea is that when those trucks are moving from one point to the other, let's load them up as much as possible. So that's what happened in the 80s. Well, of course, in the 90s, there was a big push to outsource manufacturing to Asia. That happened. That really complicated the supply chain, because now everything had to be manufactured in China and brought to the US. In fact, because of the pandemic, we've seen a pretty big impact to e-commerce and supply chain in general. I live in Los Angeles, and the LA port, I think, has on an average 80, 90 ships that are waiting to get in. There's a big jam over there. And then in the 20s, e-commerce started to pick up. And if you think about where we are today, it's completely flipped. What I want to highlight is it's the consumers that are now in control. So when you're buying online, you're deciding what you want to buy, when you want to deliver it, and where you want to deliver it. And when you click that button buy, the entire supply chain has to adapt to what the consumer is getting. So that's completely changed, and consumers are in control. So there's no surprise where companies like Amazon has really focused on the consumers. That's the right thing to do, because they're in control. And so moving forward, you'll see a lot of innovation, disruption in the customer touching aspects. That's why you're seeing a disruption in the last mile space. The last mile is no matter to your home, to the consumer's home. And I want to also now shift gears and talk about what happened to retail, because we can expect similar trends here in India as well, as e-commerce is picking up. So for those who are familiar with the retail space in the US, Sears was the Amazon many years ago. Sears had large stores, and they used to sell through catalogs. And so they used to sell through catalogs. Well, it wasn't online. It was very similar. You had a catalog of products you could buy from. And so the question is, hey, what happened? Where are they? They're completely out of business. Same thing happened with Toys R Us, which is recent. I've lived there for 25 years, and this is a store we used to go to, and we used to take our kids as well. So there's emotional attachments to these retail chains. They got wiped out because of e-commerce. Nobody's going into those stores. So a quick summary of my assessment of what really happened. Again, there's a lot of details behind this, but to explain it simply, I think number one issue that happened was these retailers lost focus on the consumers. So staying with how the buying habits are changing was really important, and the retailers didn't adapt. So the consumers were moving on to online, eventually to mobile purchasing, but the retail chains didn't adapt fast enough. The second one was the technology was changing fast. It's amazing every time we come back to India and see the usage of cell phones, for example. You're using it right now. Hopefully you're taking good notes. But many of these companies really missed that technology trend that was going on. And number three was supply chain. So I mentioned the push supply chain and the pull one. And a lot of companies are now struggling to adapt to how quickly the consumers are expecting the products to show up at their homes. So it's fascinating how in India, growing up here, I still used to remember the sabji wala coming with his cart at home. We were actually delivering vegetables 25 years ago. It's sort of come back now through e-commerce. but it's high tech as well. Consumers want to know when that delivery is happening, that they want to track it live as well. The Uber technologies also have raised the expectation to that level. Last but not the least is change. And I cannot overestimate the importance of change, because some of the retailers, even though they get it, even though they have the right technology, they know what needs to be done, they get stuck in how to really drive change, where they've done business in a certain way for 50, 100 years. So a number of retailers are struggling with that. We should expect these happening here as well. We've had lots of discussions with the businesses in India, which have been in business for 50 plus years, and they're trying to figure out how to make that transition. If they don't make it fast enough, they'll be in trouble. So this slide has a lot of information on it. I'm going to summarize quickly. The top row is Amazon plus the rest of the players, and the bottom portion is all the e-commerce, all the retailers. So what happened with Amazon is, it's obviously everybody knows they started selling books, and then they added other products, and they kept going. If you look at those, the blue curves, they were happening once or twice a year. And they look at what the pace of change was started to happen 2013 onwards. And so massive innovation, massive expansion globally as well, including eventually acquisition of Whole Foods, which is a retail chain for food in the US. And in fact, I was, as I mentioned, there at Amazon when we launched India, China. So big push, high-speed innovation. Think of this as an operations company that runs like a technology. And whereas most of the retailers were still thinking, oh, e-commerce is going to go away eventually. We don't have to worry about it back then. Now they're catching up. So just the pace of change that is required by these companies is pretty big. Again, the companies, the businesses in India are going to need that help to make that transition, to sort of compete in the e-commerce space. Eventually, it is a battle, and one piece is how do you run your operations within the four walls. Once you get the orders, how do you pick and pack and so on. But we believe the most complex piece where there's going to be rapid innovation is the home delivery side of it. Not just home delivery, but the transportation aspect of the supply chain. And it's a battle in the US, and we're seeing that same battle here. We should expect a lot of innovation in this space as well. We've heard about Amazon testing drones for the last few years now, and robotics for home delivery are already there in the US, so we should expect those in a few years as well. We feel great where we are. We're actually in the middle of some of these changes in the US, and we want to help bring those to India. So the question is, when we're dealing with the small and medium businesses, we've been running the business in a certain way. Retail, they have stores. How do they switch over to e-commerce? It's not either this or that. They have to figure out how to do both. So that's really the challenge. And reminds me of the transformers that they have to still be retail, but be able to transform when needed e-commerce. And our goal here is to be the force behind the small businesses. One slide back, please. So we want to call the Megazone on, and really, we're the Optimus Prime in this case, helping the small businesses survive. All right, so where this leads us is really sharing with you what our mission is. We're really on a mission to help the small guys in the e-commerce game. And we're not starting now. We started 4 years ago. We've got a long list of businesses that we've already helped in the US on this path. And a lot of them are in the food delivery space, apparel and electronics and different products. And it's the same experience now we bring here and we want to launch in India. So real quick touch on Advarix and XPDEL. I already got that question in the room. What's the difference between the two? They are sister companies. We started. Advarix is really going in and helping with analytics technology, really understand how a certain merchant or a business needs to evolve. And then XPDEL is a physical infrastructure. So buildings, drivers, trucks, pick, pack, ship, that's XPDEL. To give you an example, One thing that I've listed under Barracks is control tower. Control tower, believe it or not, we have our team in India, in Gurgaon, is dispatching about 7,000 trucks in the US. Nobody's done that before. It's not a regular BPO because it's not just handling a call, it's actually dealing with high tech and being able to track the trucks in the US and being able to communicate with the drivers over there as well. So that's been a really exciting rollout that we actually did almost 2 years ago now. And that's continuing to grow. The control tower is also in the US. We are managing all the way from manufacturing in China, ocean freight into the country, all the way to the consumers. So the same technologies, the same experience again will be applied in India. Today we're going to talk about XPDEL. That's the focus, which is the physical aspect of it. We're launching fulfillment centers in India, just like we've launched in the US. We're in 10 markets in the US, and this is like an extension of that network. Starting with 3, and then we'll be expanding to other parts. Ashish is going to cover the plans for India in a few minutes. This is a list of different companies in the US that we've helped. Some of these names may look familiar. You'll see a lot of food-related supply chain and companies. And at the bottom of the slide, I wanted to share where our team comes from. Not just Amazon, but FedEx, Walmart, Netflix, Fresh Direct is direct-to-consumer food delivery companies as well. i2 Technologies is a supply chain. Used to be a supply chain company that got bought by JDA. I think then Gooey Order is part of Panasonic now. The whole point is that it's a best-in-class global experience, and the idea is that we've been there, done that. It's not a personal deal when it comes to e-commerce. That gives us the confidence that we're going to succeed with this. There are a few case studies we want to share with you. I'm going to just touch on one and then hand it over to John for the rest. The reason I wanted to share Rent the Runway with this team is because Rent the Runway was our very first customer 4 years ago when we started. And to give you an idea, we went in and helped them improve their operations and improve their cost structure back then. But then early this year, XPDEL came in. So the consulting was from Advaris. XPDEL came in, and we launched the first scheduled pickup from home. So Rent the Runway is a closet in the cloud where women can rent clothes versus buy. They come pay a monthly subscription. It's the largest dry cleaning operation in the world. And so we help improve their operations. And then earlier this year, consumers can now pick the day and time. Wednesday at 4 p.m. and the driver shows up to bring the dress back. That was one. The one listed at the bottom, which is listed as zone skipping. In that case, we're actually consolidating all the shipments that are going to one city and using commercial airlines to fly those from city to city and injecting those into a local same-day delivery provider with complete tracking. Why this is important to share? Again, similar concepts apply in India as well. And so we expect to bring a lot of innovation on the logistics side. With that, I'm going to hand it over to John to share a little bit more about how they help launch XPDEL in the US and some plans for India.
Waiting for the green light to come on. Hi, everybody. Again, thank you for being here. You know, the story that Manish just shared and the couple that I'm going to share with you in a second are very indicative of how XPDEL operates, right? So, and what our customers are like. We're innovative, we're fast, we show great tenacity, and our customers are like that, we are like that, and we think we're going to bring that same level of, we know we're going to bring that same level of engagement with our customers to India. So I'm going to share a couple of additional case studies with you, starting with my favorite. And the reason it's my favorite is because I spent a lot of time with this customer, and this customer was one of our first and most difficult challenges. So 3 years ago, well, this company, let me back up a minute. This company was started about 3 years ago by 2 gentlemen in Brooklyn, New York, and they had this vision that the world needed luxury brand hand sanitizer. 3 years, who didn't? I didn't, but they did, and turns out that a year later, after they launched their business, COVID hit. And so their business took off drastically. At the same time that their business took off, the supply chain went from weeks to days for hand sanitizer. And so while we were launching this customer, we had to make some pretty aggressive steps in order to get their inventory to the customer in a timely fashion. So high-end luxury retailers in the United States are extremely demanding. Packaging has to be perfect, labeling has to be perfect, and it has to be time-definite deliveries. So with the supply chain so backed up, and they're and being a new manufacturer themselves, we had to find a solution quickly to make sure that they didn't lose those sales being a startup, and that they were able to help make those deliveries to the customers, which would then keep them in business with these high-end retailers. So we parked trucks outside the manufacturer in Los Angeles, and by the hour, drove the trucks as the work came off the assembly line, drove it to our operation plant, where myself and a number of other of us worked around the clock on the weekends to get these first orders to their first big luxury retailers. And it was a huge success. A lot of work. We learned how to do packaging and some other creative things to make sure that these orders happened on time. And the win from that is they then decided that they were going to use us to launch into the direct-to-consumer market. And it's a very complex product in that the customers can custom package their orders or custom select their orders on the fly. So in a typical world, you're building an assembly of kits. In this one, you're building it as you walk through the building. And so our technology team did yeoman's work to build out this new software application so we could satisfy this very unique need for this customer. It's becoming more well known now as a bundle, an on-the-fly bundle. And so we were able to satisfy this customer, and we did the network analysis, got him close to his customers in both our Los Angeles and our New York facilities, and he's growing like gangbusters, which is what we do. We help our customers grow. So that is Netflix. Now, this customer is another unique, interesting customer. They are in a plant-based protein business, meaning they're replacing meat, but in the form of the source that the people in the U.S. like, and that's a hamburger. And so they had a very interesting launch in retail and restaurant, very successful, I should say. But they wanted to go direct to consumer, which who isn't? So how do they do that? Very unique product, meaning, or unique challenges to us and to them, how to package it so it stays fresh and doesn't spoil, how to get to close to their customers to reduce the amount of time that product was in the field. And so we did the network analysis again and helped them understand where their customers were and where the growth was going to be. We positioned them in 3 different markets across the U.S. We designed packaging solutions, including the consumption rates of what's the name of that ice again? Dry ice. The consumption rates of dry ice, so this product got to the customer fresh. Getting food at home delivery that is not fresh, you're buying somewhere else. And so it was a very exciting project on for us, and thrilled that again they're growing very fast. Another one of my favorites is a company called Reef, and they're a big company, but they have several divisions that run different types of businesses throughout the United States. And in this case, Reef they're a real estate company. The division was a real estate company that owns approximately 7,000 parking lots across the United States. And they weren't making enough money on these parking lots and on these assets. And then COVID hit, and no one was parking in their parking lots. So Reef quickly pivoted to a new business model that they were going to drive revenue through those markets by jumping onto the bandwagon of getting food delivered to the homes. And there were some other components of it in these markets as well, like entertainment. But they needed a solution fast. their parking lots were sitting empty, and they wanted to move quickly into both ghost kitchens and delivery to the consumer. And I think ghost kitchens or dark kitchens here in India, dark kitchens. Yeah, so we built a hub and spoke model for them and launched their first buildings, our first buildings, within weeks of signing the agreement. And then I think it was late last year or early this year that we launched a new site for them every other week, moving rapidly, helping them start to generate revenue on this stagnant property in no time. And so they are obviously growing very rapidly, and we're thrilled to be a part of it. You know, there's a lot of unique challenges in the new supply chain, right? With everyone buying things from home or at home delivery of hazardous materials like health and beauty care and food and beverage and temperature controls and food safety. So we have invested in our company in both the technology and the talent to ensure that we can take our customers from the starting gate to the customer and seamlessly and help them launch those businesses. And I say launch because a lot of them are startups. You know, so in our effort to tackle the challenges of e-commerce, you can see there's quite a few. And I'm not going to talk about every one of those, but I will talk about one that Manish brought up, and that's the local same-day delivery. It's a really critical area right now. Everyone went from I'll take it next week to tomorrow to same day to right now, and there's a huge demand on the infrastructure to support that, right? Vehicles, drivers, and so we have done some really creative things. We've partnered with final mile delivery companies throughout the United States. In fact, we partnered with the highest or the largest final mile delivery company in North America, and we are integrated fully with final mile delivery companies throughout the United States. And we can move on a dime and solve these types of challenges quickly. So I don't think I'm going to cover the rest of it, but I will say that, you know, while we pride ourselves on our abilities internally, one of the things that really makes us strong is our partnerships. And we have a group of partners that strategic alliances that we've developed over the years, some from our current relationships, some from previous relationships, that allow us to move quickly and nimbly to solve solutions, because people want answers now, not next year, right? I want to open my business today, not next year. And so we've partnered with companies like JLL and Prologis, where we can acquire space very quickly. Like the example I gave with Reef, within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we're signing leases and getting buildings ready for new customers. We already mentioned the local delivery network, so I won't cover that again. We have very close relationships with very high-tech automation for fulfillment center operations. In fact, we manage one of them, one of their sites that's a very highly automated operation with our staff, and help build out the technology solutions or have input. So anyway,
I think one of the pieces on the previous slide challenge is food is one of the fastest growing segments globally. And one of the big challenges is how do you maintain the chip chain? And when you're delivering ice cream, you want to make sure it's not milk by the time it gets to the consumer. So that will continue to be a challenge, and we've been able to solve that in the US. In India, it's a different structure, right? You lose power. We're just talking about that. You lose power, which goes down. What do you do in that case? So there's still some infrastructure problems that we have to solve, but we're determined to get through that, because that's what we're consuming. And then on the next slide, although John covered the US, the point is that we're taking a very same approach in India as well. We already have lined up lots of partners, because otherwise we won't be able to move rapidly, especially when it comes to real estate. And even real estate, when the order comes in, depending on where that order is going, you you might know this, you might need different sizes of buildings as well. In the Amazon world, there are fulfillment centers, there are sort centers, and there are delivery stations. All they are different sized buildings, and their functions are different as well. So I get this question last couple of weeks. I've been getting this question quite a bit. Hey, how much are you investing in real estate? Well, it really depends on how you're designing the supply chain, because you're not going to have a 500,000 square feet building inside a dense residential area. They're tiny places. So what we call those are micro fulfillment centers and nano fulfillment centers, and we have different strategies for each one of those layers in the supply chain. And then, like I said, different partners that are going to help us get there quickly as well. Lots of learnings that we're bringing from the university.
I'm finished, actually. Okay. Thank you.
Maybe I can touch on the US. Okay, so I think lots of similarities. The US economy is about $2 trillion. Maybe a breakup on the next slide. Walk you through it and what we focused on. About $1 trillion of that is focused on direct consumer. Within that, there are some big buckets, which is we talk about food and beverages, but also fashion and then health and wellness. Those are the three primary focuses for us in the US. But again, we cannot forget about the last mile, which in itself is a big space to solve. Without the last mile, the rest doesn't work. And then in the US, almost equal size or more is the B2B e-commerce. So that's what we've been going after in the US. But I think it'd be best if I hand it over to Ashish for California. Ashish is, as he mentioned, a CEO of Asia Pacific. He's also a global CIO, and all the technology comes from India, which is a fact of pride for both of us.
Thank you. So, we have been discussing for the last 1 year how to get XPDEL into India and repeat the success for our customers. There are similar challenges in India, and there are very nice ideas that the startups have got. And the challenge that they face is basically how to run their operations and scale. So from a product company, they turn into more of an operation company, or logistics company, handling the shipments, ensuring that the products reach the customer on time. And at the same time, they need to compete with the marketplaces and where the deliveries are within 2 days. And there is altogether different customer experience. So how do we ensure that there is a level field, for these companies, and they are able to grow? In India, 2020, there were 1,500 million orders that were fulfilled, which will go to 5,000 million orders in 2024. So there is a huge, movement towards the e-commerce. And COVID has, because of COVID, the entire e-commerce has changed. And this is not just e-commerce on the marketplace, but also the hyper-local delivery that we have seen for the last 6-7 months, where it's going to 30 minutes or even 10 minutes deliveries. And there's a whole network of macro fulfillment centers and nano fulfillment centers that are coming out across. So our mission, as Manish mentioned, is to help these startups or small medium enterprises bring in the global practices to India and with our local expertise and technology innovations, bring all that change. We are not just a fulfillment center, we are just picking, packing, and shipping out the orders. We are bringing in where we are partnering with the customers and trying to bring that kind of change. The biggest issues that these companies face is, for example, is on the inventory side. So what we are doing is we are helping these companies not only manage their inventories, but also plan for their inventories. We are able to forecast what will be the demand for the for the orders. So similarly, on the logistics side, we have the routing optimization tools where we can optimize the routes so that the cost of delivering each of the products is less than what we would be paying right now. So it's not something where we would be trying to acquire customers just by giving any kind of helping them, empowering them through the technology so that they can give the right kind of customer experience. And this could be through, tracking, end-to-end tracking. There are not many companies who are doing that pure kind of end-to-end tracking. It could be on the hyper-local delivery side, but not on the typical e-commerce side. So that's a change that we're trying to bring in. So our plan for India is to open 20, we will go into 20 markets over the next 2 years. We will be opening 11 fulfillment centers in next year. We have already opened 3 of them in Delhi, Mumbai, and Bangalore. And the idea is to reach out to the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So give that experience what you and me would be having in Delhi, when we're getting the product within 2 days or even same day through a marketplace. Similarly, giving that experience on any other e-commerce website, and going to the last mile in terms of those kind of cities or small towns. And this would be an omni-channel fulfillment solutions where it's not only just helping the e-commerce, but also helping the retailers and the agencies. And as Manish mentioned, we would be forging partnerships similar to US with the retailers, with the logistics partners, and real estate. And of course, this all turns into creating a lot of jobs across India. And sustainability is something very close to our heart. So 50%, unlike US where we have been in a very small way doing our own, running our own fleets, in India we will be also working on the logistics side. We are already in discussions with a couple of companies where we will be doing last mile delivery. And you would see outside that we are already going out with e-rickshaws as well as the e-bikes. So 50% of our fleet would be electric bikes. So this is what it is. 3 cities, Delhi, Mumbai, and Bangalore, and then moving to new markets. We will be very soon opening up in Guwahati in January 2024. And these are the initial partners that we are on the last mile delivery e-commerce express. So the difference that we were talking is basically on, it's not just the fulfillment center. We are helping companies manage their inventories. Also, say for example, a company comes in and they say that do you have a fulfillment center in Bangalore? Any other company would say yes, we have, or we can open it. What we do is we do their network analysis, understand where the density is, where the demand is, what is the right place for them to open the fulfillment center, so that the cost of logistics also gets reduced. So we do that kind of analysis, and our analysis are not just diagnostic analysis, but also predictive and prescriptive. So we are able to pinpoint where the problem is. Is it at that manufacturing point? Is it at the inbound, or something that we need help on the logistics side? As Manish mentioned, we have the control tower. Along with the control tower, we also have 24/7 customer service, which is right now servicing the US companies. This is just XPDEL snapshot, 100% year-on-year growth. It's a 2-year-old company, and we have got these fulfillment centers right now in the US, and we are planning to open 10 more next year. And right now we are in 2 continents, and then we will be also opening up in Latin America, and very soon we will be Europe, the first quarter of 2020. You want to come to
Thank you again. I'm going to briefly speak about the innovation that we bring in technology with the products that defines our success. Next slide, please. I briefly alluded to this earlier. The platform offers a plug-and-play kind of integration with various front-end and back-end systems in place. On the front-end side, we are integrated with the top e-commerce platforms such as Shopify, Amazon, Walmart, based. On the back end side, we have various ERP integrations. While they are not plug and play, but the loops are provided within the platform to easily integrate with ERP systems that are already at our customers' place, such as Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, and such. Lastly, but most importantly, we at the back end, we also have integrations in place with various carrier partners out there, the FedEx and the UPS, the USPS of the world. This list continues to grow. We are integrated with top national and regional carriers, and now that we are in India, we are also looking at including some of the top players here in India as well. And as I said, this list continues to grow on a daily basis. From the feature standpoint, the customer experience remains in the center stage of XPDEL, and towards that, we have in our product built-in features such as the text-based pickup scheduling, contactless pickup. We have proof of delivery. It's already integrated with payment date. We have live monitoring, as we mentioned, through the CS Mission Center. And some customers who still want to, who still believe in the touch and feel and want to speak of human, that is also available through the CS Mission Center. So it's a full 360-degree view, as you can see, that the tech platform offers. Continuing in the same vein, we offer similar experience also on the return side. So you can schedule a return from your home right through either your web page or your mobile device. You can print the return label, and then you can track your delivery or your shipment all the way back to the provider. So, of course, no solution is complete without the dashboards and business intelligence. And this platform offers some of the dashboards out of the box with the ability to create your custom dashboards in a very easy and seamless fashion. That can track your KPIs, both and other metrics at the inventory level, at the order level, and on the logistics side. So that's pretty much it on the technology side. And now to continue, I would like to hand it back to Nish to wrap up and sort of also walk us through the management team that we have here.
Thanks, all. All right, so I'll touch on the team, but I also want to share just my personal story on this and why this is so important to me. As I shared with you, I grew up in India and moved to the US 25 years ago, and always kept thinking about what can I bring back and reasons to come back more often and more often. In fact, I remember 15 years ago when I applied for business school, I was supposed to write essays. Why do you want to go to business school? And I shared there as well because I'm going to come back and bring some latest technology, and it's my way of getting back to my roots. And so, personally, this is has been on my roadmap for a long time. So, really excited to be here. And it's a goal for the entire team, but my personal goal as well is there's no reason why India should be any terms of technology and latest know-how. And it's been fascinating over the few years to see how India has really progressed on the global map. Obviously, for folks like me that moved up, it's always gives us a lot of pride to see how it is emerging as a part player. And so, although we are global, we're looking at, we already have a team in South America, we're launching in Europe in Q1. But it is going to stay at the heart because, as Ashish shared, the technology hub globally is here to command and control globally is here as well. So this is near and dear to my heart, and we're going to really charge forward and get XPDEL up and running. Real quickly, I want to touch on the rest of the team as well. I know Bill right now. Bill Teller is our Chief Operations Officer, and he wanted to be here. He sent us a video, but there's some issues, technical issues with the play. But he was with me at Amazon, and he ran Amazon's fulfillment centers and eventually rolled out their home delivery back as well. Sam Wahi actually also grew up in India and he moved after 12 class for grade. And he's a chief consulting and analytics officer. Most of our analytics team is based in Dallas. And as Amit mentioned, that's at the Ashish also touched on it, that how we go and design these solutions, it's extremely data driven. It gives us chances to chances to succeed in that case. Ashish, Mike was actually my boss at Amazon, and it was great when he started helping us as well on the logistics side. Probably Justin Bill, in the rest of the team as well, our CFO is a Harvard MBA. Then Warren brought up in Canada, but has a vast in India as well. So you'll see a theme, it's a really good, diverse team from different fields. John is a Spanish background as well, who's our chief HR team. It's a really strong cross-functional team, and I think my job was to get started, but really it's a team that has made it happen so far, and I'm going to continue to grow. We also have a lot of veterans, at least on the US team. One more second. So Jeff and Tom were both at Amazon with us as well. Jeff was an Army officer for 20+ years, and then Tom was, for those who've seen the movie Top Gun, with Tom Cruise, he's flying those planes actually for the Navy in the US. Both went to Amazon and now they're with us. And then John Winkles runs the US XPDEL operations, and all the fulfillment centers are under him. And then we have Akhilesh in the room, who's going to be the John Winkles of India. You want to raise your hand? So Akhilesh is going to be running operations for us. And I think we have Nilesh somewhere here. It'll be hard to see you with a mask on. So he's going to be, he's heading up our business development in India. So we talked about a number of customers already that we've had discussions with. He's got a strong background. So the point is a lot of experience, and we bring this. I think we're missing our next picture, but he's here. So this is the group in the room. Really encourage you to please ask any questions you have, any feedback, any ideas that you have for us, helping us being successful with this launch. With that, I think we can open up for questions.
Yes.
Yeah. We can take some questions right now, but we'll be also obviously after once we get off the field.
Good morning. First of all, my best wishes for the grand success of your India launching. I'm Gajanan Mani from the Reef network. I just wanted to ask one question. So now, post-corona era, there are a lot of demand. Corona and dengue era, there is a lot of demand for specific medicines. So, is there any plan to deal with these emergency medicines? It may not be available in the local city. Number one. Number two, India is a big exporter of the handicrafts, and so far there is a lot of import and export is happening. But now, for example, Moradabad or some Srinagar stalls over. So, is there any plan to plan in India to facilitate a quick delivery of this item across the globe? Thank you.
So great questions. First one, absolutely we actually had a lot of discussions for pharmaceuticals and how do we deliver those. What we're doing now is we want to make sure that we continue to maintain the quality of the services. So like in the US, there's a lot of regulations on medication. You need the prescriptions, and you cannot hand over your medicine to somebody else, right? All for privacy and so on. So there's a lot of discussion about, hey, let's get into it, but we want to also make sure, hey, it is getting at the worst stage at a different place. We want to do it the right way. So I think it's easy to solve the logistics part of it, But we want to make sure whoever is putting the medicines together is a pharmacist and not somebody else. So the supply chain logistics can be solved. We want to make sure we go in a planful way and don't follow the rules and regulations for as far as medicines are concerned. The export piece, absolutely. I think the reason we go building a global network is to start to flow products back and forth. And we already have import licenses in the US. The companies that we've met, we've asked them, hey, you should start to think about taking your products to US, to Europe, and to South America as well. So that would be an exciting point to get at, if you're able to get handicrafts from India outside, and then vice versa.
Any questions? Thank you.
So we'll be around, obviously, here, and happy to meet one-on-one.
Yes.
Right, do want to thank everyone for taking the time today. It really means a lot to us to get this support.